Liam Slattery says, what happened to SARS Cork yesterday? That would have happened to 𝘕𝘮 also. 2 competitive championships, but well off the likes of Ballygunner and 𝘕𝘮𝘁, and I'm a tip supporter, Shane. So let's get to it. SARS, yes, brilliant to win their county title this year, and they've had a tough spell in the meantime because their pitch has been, completely waterlogged, obviously, to try and relieve the area around where the club is based. So fair play to them for that. But they've been training in Páirc Uí Rinn in the meantime. I don't really know if it counts as much of an excuse when you look at the performance that they had against the Gunners. But it's probably as much down to the Gunners as anything else, isn't it? Like, it was just as comprehensive as it gets, really.
It's gas. Just for example, if 𝘧𝘢𝘳𝘁𝘮 don't go well at the weekend, whatever week break will be thrown up as an excuse. And just giving an example, 8-week break with Ballygunner, it just didn't matter at all. If anything, they looked fresh and hungrier than they were even before the break. But it's gas. They just seem to make little of any kind of obstacles or whatever in their way. I just on Sarsfields really quickly, again to Ballygunner in a minute. I suppose someone said this to me yesterday, and you kind of maybe a pertinent enough question. If you go down through the Sarsfields team, how many of those guys are going to play for Cork in 2024? If you go down through
last year was it something like 18 or 19 players that played against Limerick? Not a single representative of SARS featured in the championship.
Yeah, so maybe you could say the same maybe about Killidangan in Tipperary. You could actually, because not one player started most of their championship games last year when 𝘧𝘳𝘁𝘮 was in the goals. But I don't know, Sarsfields were miles off it from the very, very start. It looked like Ballygunner had them figured out after about 4 or 5 minutes, genuinely. They were working the ball laterally across the field around the 45, and Ballygunner were letting them do it. And then they started engaging them around their 65. The ball coming in was usually high, kind of lobbing ball. And Philip Matney was always there on the break as well. They even tried to spray the balls out to the side, tried to play to, they didn't have a Michael Cusson like they had back in the day, a big tower and full forward. They had kind of lighter, smaller, nippier kind of forwards, but they didn't really play to their strengths. And then you look at how Ballygunner were using the ball, and you mentioned, I think it was a good ignorant ball, but it was a good ignorant ball at the right time. Stephen maybe Sarsfields were after scoring, their defensive shape wasn't totally set up, and it was nearly like, how high can I hit this ball? He was literally putting snow on it, but it was at the right. Sorry?
How strong was the wind?
Darragh Sullivan said it was a 5 or 6 point wind. I didn't think that from where I was watching, but it was reasonably strong. He was still putting the ball down on top of the 21 though. But I just thought what is interesting, people think that the long ball is archaic, or you have to work the ball through the lines. They did work the ball through the lines when they needed to or when they had to, but when there was an opening and when they pulled out the SARS half back line, it was like, we're putting the ball over everybody and we're putting it 2-on-2 to the edge of the D, and they got a load of hay from it. But it's all about when you do it, and you don't do it every time. Stephen O'Keefe did it when he looked up the pitch, and when he got the ball in his hand, I'd say he was like, oh, a long puck out on here, I'm out straight away, ball is out. Next time, if the long puck out wasn't on, it was like way slower. It was a drill ball to the half forward line or drill ball to the midfield, but it was just really, really smart. You do the long ball when it's on, you don't do it when it's not on. So, and I definitely think, and I mentioned it on Thursday's show to Donal O'Rourke, it's definitely something they've added to their bow. They don't necessarily have 6'2" forwards to be winning that breaking ball, but they're not really trying to catch it. They're just trying to tip it down, or even Desi Hutchinson is taking a chance and breaking in behind if there's no touch on it. And I'd say it's probably from playing Ballyhale last year that they were like, we need to add something maybe a little bit different to our arsenal, and that's definitely looks like they have. Will they do that against the 𝘕𝘮𝘁 the whole time? No, they won't, but they'll definitely sprinkle it in the odd time.
So I was looking at it yesterday. From the first half, at least 1-6 came from really long balls into the square, and Sarsfields were not equipped to deal with it. Whether it's the fact that they're just not good, they haven't worked enough on the breaking ball, or they have, and Ballygunner are so much superior to it. That Ballygunner have had their sort of mini pre-season again and had so much time to work together and play challenge matches and try stuff out. And this is a team that's so well drilled anyway, and probably on average the last 10 years has been together for maybe 3 months collectively every year, compared with, Sarsfields. So you have to sort of, to some degree, be realistic and say, okay, we're Sarsfields and Ballygunner coming as prepared as each other. If you look at it over the course of a decade, no. Obviously not. But that's not to take anything away from Ballygunner. Because like when they went long, they saw a weakness. Right, Cork teams in general, are they good in the air? Are they? Not really. You know, is that a fair comment to make? Like, since the whole legendary half-back line of Sean Oak, John Gardner and Ronan Curran, you don't really think of Cork teams lording it in the air. Now, Kieran Joyce might change that a little bit in the next couple of years, and Rob Downey one side of it, maybe Owen Downey the other. But I just thought SARS really needed to look at it and think, okay, we can't go along into the full forward line. Something that they did several times in the first half. And, you know, Barry Coughlin and Philip Mahoney and so on and so forth. They just spoiled the ball every time and their +1 was able to pick up the ball. I thought what they should have done was, you know, especially when you saw it wasn't working early in the game, we got to play within 100 yards of our own goals and just forget everything inside the 45 or 35 yards to the Ballygunner goal, because Stephen O'Keefe's too good. Barry Coughlin's too good, Philip Mahoney's too good, and obviously the players around him are absolutely excellent. Every one of them to a man, but you know, what a spine to have there. So like, can we just run the ball up to the 45, give or take, try and get Jack O'Connor on the ball, try and get our shooters on the ball out there, and leave maybe 1 or 2 lads inside to sort of keep Ballygunner honest. Obviously, if the ball is on, it's on. But we're not going to beat them the full length of the pitch. Maybe we just got to be like, let's keep it tight right around the middle and whatever, and not make it easy for Ballygunner. And if they want to go short, let them go short, but let's just invite them to ultimately hit it long and keep the numbers back there. Because what they did, they just got pasted.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think you have to try and go at them from distance a bit and maybe slowly pull Philip Mahoney away from where he was, and then you can maybe deliver some balls in. Like, it's funny. Have you ever been playing in a game? This has definitely happened to me, where you actually know when you're hitting in the ball that it's probably not the right ball, but there mightn't be anything else on. Like, you literally knew, and you could feel it in the crowd the second the ball was hit. It's not really on here. Like, Philip Mahoney is actually standing where the ball is going to land. So Barry Coughlin or whoever can go at the ball absolutely bald-headed and just make sure he breaks it, or just make sure his opponent doesn't get it. And then Philip Mahoney walks out with the ball, and just time after time, he was literally just walking out with ball. And like, as good as Ballygunner are, and there's some other parts, like, he is probably the one that really makes them tick.
He could still be playing county. Like, look at the shape he's in.
Like, he retired at 28. But look at what he's done at club level since then. Like, he's not been on the go the whole time, and I'm sure they're resting in between. But look at the level his game has gotten to at club level. To me, he's their most important player. He's the glue that kind of holds it all together, from what I hear on and off the pitch. And SARS they were kind of making a hero of him as well, and it's something you just can't do. And if it means you have to shoot from distance, and you know, like Cotton McCarthy's been scoring from distance. I think he had 9 points in his last 2 games before yesterday. It's not something that, you know, that's totally alien to them, but I think it was something that they had to kind of try and even play one inside at times. But it was gas. Cotton McCarthy got SARS' first point in the 11th minute, and I'd say 15 seconds later, while the crowd was still cheering that point on, the ball was in the net at the other end. Long ball down, Desi collects it onto Peter Hogan. Like, you talk about like moves that you've seen over and over and over again. How many times have we seen it? Peter Hogan coming off the shoulder for that goal and then slamming it to the net. And like, it was 1-4 to a point after 11 minutes. And realistically, like, you're thinking the game is over at this stage. That I definitely thought that anyway.
Yeah, and fair play to SARS for making a bit of a burst before half time, but like, they got just 2 points from playing the first half to 1-9 from Ballygunner, and Desi Hutchinson was absolutely brilliant. In the first half alone, he scored 3 points, he assisted 1-1, he set up that goal in the second half as well. What a brilliant stick pass across for Kevin Mahoney. And the thing that's so good about Ballygunner is every little skill they're so good at. Like, you know the way you'd often kill lads for, you know, putting their stick to a ball when they should put the hand. You can't even give out to Ballygunner because, you know, the stick, you know, and Patrick Fitzgerald, like, he can score points from anywhere. They just do so many things so brilliantly well that it just takes the game away from Sarsfields. And Sarsfields end up hitting shots from distance. You know, Colin McCarthy got 1, then he decided from corner back to try 2 more. They didn't come off. Luke Elliott missed another one. And it was just poor shots after poor shots. But this all feeds into the stats of Cork teams anyway. And I really dug into them this morning. Cork teams since 2009, when Newtown Chandram won the Munster, and both games they won away from home. It was against Thurles and Ballygunner. I mean, what a way to win a Munster championship. Away to both of those teams, both games in Thurles actually. So I suppose it was technically a neutral ground for the final. But in the 14 games that they've played in the 13 Munster championships since, it's just been, you know, because one year there wasn't a Munster championship, in case you're thinking it should have been 15. They've won just one game, and that was away to Patrickswell in 2016. Glen Rovers won 15 points to 14. But every other game since, they've lost. Two of them, you know, they took teams to extra time. That was Sarsfields took De La Salle to extra time in 2010. And in 2014, Sarsfields also took Kilmallock to extra time. So every other team outside of Glen Rovers has been beaten in normal time. It's a really shocking run. And even just within that, the average scoreline, what would you say the average scoreline of the Cork teams and the opposition teams have been in that time frame? Now, just convert goals to points just to make it a little bit easier.
21-15?
It's been 22-16. So, yeah, they've lost every game on average by 6 points, and that includes the one where they won by 1 point. But it's been dreadful. But I would say, right, and I think this is a joke, it's been 10 years since a Cork team played a home game in the Munster Hurling Championship. Isn't that insane?
That's nuts, isn't it?
You have to go back to Middleton in 2013 when they lost at home to 6 Mile Bridge. Every other game since, and I'll go through them. So Ballygunner at home to Sarsfields, Ballyea at home to Finbars, Kilmallock at home to Middleton. 2020 there was no championship played when Blackrock went through. 2019 Glen went to represent and lost away to Borrisoleigh. The year before, Middleton lost away to Ballygunner. The year before, Blackrock lost away to 𝘗𝘗𝘁. The year before that, Glen Rovers beat Patrickswell. And when they went on to play in the next round of the Munster, it was in Thurles against Ballyea. 2015, Ballygunner at home to Glen Rovers. 2014, Kilmallock at home to Sarsfields. So as I said, you have to go all the way back to Middleton 2013 since a Cork team played at home at all. So that's not going to help the record. It doesn't excuse everything, but that's quite a crazy record.
Yeah, it's a mad one. I know Paul Fitzpatrick does tweet every year about Cavan's league sequence, and I think it's a crazy amount of years in a row, or a crazy amount of years out of amount of years that they've had their first league game away, and they've ended up with 4 away league games, no matter what division they're in. But for that to be that long, that Cork teams have played away in the Munster Championship seems a bit bonkers. Listen, maybe it would have been the case that there would have been a home had they have won, because and maybe that would have been the case for a good few of the years, that the semi-final would have been a home, because obviously the 𝘗𝘗𝘁 are playing Ballygunner in Limerick, and they would have been playing them in the park had that been the case if Sarsfields had won. It doesn't help, but it definitely doesn't excuse what is a truly appalling record, really. Like, the Cork Championship is very, very competitive. There's no doubt about it. But it's competitive within itself. It's not competitive outside of Cork. And their record outside of Cork definitely, bears kind of fruit to that kind of theory. And some people that have coached and managed within Cork would say that the only thing that's on, a Cork team's mind is to win a Cork Championship, and how attritional it is to win a Cork Championship. But it's not an excuse. Like, it is in no way an excuse why they've totally, maybe they haven't underperformed outside of Cork. Maybe their teams just aren't that good, and the stats and the records would probably suggest that and back that up.
Yeah, 2017 to 2019, 𝘗𝘗𝘁 won every title. And they've gotten a nice bit of a representative from teams from 𝘗𝘗𝘁, and even, I suppose, Avondhu and Carberry in the 90s also. And, like Seamus Harnedy, Paddy O'Sullivan, Bill Cooper, a couple of those at least, maybe not all three, Captain Cork, Kieran Joyce, Jack Lahey, Dermot Healy, they're the ones coming through at the moment. I think Ger Millerick, Niall O'Leary, I was chatting to Fintan O'Connor at 42 about some of this kind of stuff, whether it's a good or a bad thing. Because you see in the Kerry Championship at the moment, where there's only 8 teams, which is the real problem here, that people are giving out about the divisional teams winning so often. East Kerry have won 4 of the last 5 now after winning yesterday. But how many teams from small clubs that don't prepare the same way as, look at, for example, the body shape of Ballygunner players. You can see they're all in the gym doing the right things all the time, and it's probably not far off a county setup. Whereas, how many players are being lost across every county because they don't do what West Kerry and East Kerry and all these do, sort of bring them in and have them training at the same level. Now, I'm not sure if they do have how much, the contact time to have with them during the year, but I suppose even having them for a month or two at later end of the year, it's sort of like monkey see, monkey do, and they get into doing this sort of elite sort of preparation. So I don't know, in Cork, is the balance just right? But the city clubs, like you think of Blackrock, Glen and Finbars, it's the 70s since, 1980 when the Bars last won Munster. But before that, it's 1976 since Glen won it, and 1979 for Blackrock. So it's basically the city wasteland compared with how it used to be.
Just on that as well, Ballygunner are going for 3 in a row in Munster. They'll be the first team to ever do it. They'll also equal Blackrock's record, I should say, of 5 Munster titles. And they're probably odds-on favourites to do it at this stage. It's mad when you're looking at Ballygunner and you see how seasoned they are, how everything is on point. You see Tony O'Gregan there at the matches, who's their sports psychologist or whatever, working in the background. You see David Franks, obviously, who's their well-renowned and well-heralded coach. You don't really see 𝘱𝘂 O'Donnell, but he's there somewhere. And you're just thinking, there's probably not too many club setups that have access to this caliber of individual. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again, with regards to 𝘱𝘂 O'Donnell, the comparisons and parallels between how Limerick play and how Ballygunner play are striking. And like, I'll put this question to you, like, before you start, like, how many points are you in arrears of Ballygunner before you start, if you get me, before you start a match, just because of how well set up they are, how well drilled they are? You can't just land and play Ballygunner. Like, you have to, there has to be a fair level of detail and prep put into it, because all of a sudden, if you think you're just going to hurl them heads up or something like that, you're out there and 10 minutes in, you're like what's going on here? There's lads running left, right and centre. We can't get any traction. We're been pressed around our 65. We can't get a decent ball into the inside line. And that's why you're thinking in a 𝘕𝘂 game, and we'll go into that in detail in Thursday week or that, but you're looking at another high-end side that won't really fear them and will feel that they have the arsenal to go at them. But so many teams must be, in anticipation of playing Ballygunner and thinking where are we going to pout all these fires? And there's enough fires before the game starts. Then the game starts, and I just was looking at Sarge yesterday, and just even someone, I don't like picking out lads, but someone like, let's say, Daniel Carney, and he was a brilliant player at club level and at county level, but you're kind of running around chasing shadows almost, trying to chase Conor Sheehan, trying to chase Paddy Levy. There's so many things, and you don't know whether you're coming or going, you don't know where to go, and you have to be so well drilled, because there's probably never been a better drilled club team. And that's not to say they're the best club team of all time or anything like that, but they're just so well drilled. Ballyhale are a different animal, a different type of animal. That's not to say they're not systematic and tactical. Of course they are. But Ballygunner are just near impossible to break down. And unless you bring a hell of a lot of tools to the table, you have no chance.
Yeah, and we said before, Daniel Carney, great player, but in his day, but like, he was turned over a few times early in the game and gifted scores to Ballygunner. But it's not blaming him; it's just the press they put on you is just so difficult to deal with. And it's one thing saying, "Oh, you should be patient coming out with the ball." Like, Sars came out with the ball a lot during the first half, where Ballygunner sat off them. They
were allowed to. They basically tricked them into, and then cornered them into certain areas of the pitch.
Yeah, and like, that's what Limerick do as well. You'd see them, like, and I often talk about the 2022 All-Ireland when the Kilkenny half-back line got absolutely roasted because their full forward line pushed up to the 21, which meant that Limerick had all this space to do the sort of bunch and break with their half-forward line. But Limerick in the same game, they all dropped out 35 yards for most puckouts, and that's what Ballygunner do as well. And then Sars, they were coming out with the ball, and to be fair, they were patient at times, and they were stick passing it back across and trying to find a space. But I don't know, like, had they worked on a plan in terms of, like, we know Ballygunner are going to sit off, how are we going to punish them with that and force them to push up, and then, try and get some longer puckouts working as well. And I think to some degree it worked at times, but it didn't feel like they ever got it to their shooters, or they ever got it to a place where Jack O'Connor could do the sort of damage that he probably can do. And I even, like, remember early in the game, he got a ball at one stage. It didn't come up from the first time, and he ended up pulling on the ball. If it did come up, he would have been able to run at one or two players and maybe put Ballygunner on the back foot, because they were going to have to start quickly. And once they didn't, once it was 4-0 early on, even when Ballygunner were being a little bit wasteful, I think they missed, was it something like 3 of their first 4 opportunities. You just kind of knew that was all she wrote. And you were wondering, where's the goal going to come from Sars? And they pushed for one late on, and, Myers had a free saved. Colin McCarthy, he had a shot saved, tame enough effort that Stephen O'Keefe was always going to stop. You just never there was never really any sort of sense that they were going to be able to, like, they had enough in their arsenal. And you don't really blame management. They don't have enough in their arsenal. And, you know, that's kind of all she wrote, really. Ballygunner. Do you think Ballygunner, like, the mindset here is, you know, not arrogantly, but I just think there's so much confidence in what they're doing that they're kind of almost thinking, right, we'll get through this game, we'll get through the next game. You know, they're treating it one game at a time, but they really know that, you know, they're going to be there at the deep end and actually pulling teams into deep water because they're just so good.
Yeah, I'm not so sure because they're that good at dealing with whatever game is in front of them. Like, they really should be taking their eye off the ball a small bit, and there should be some lackadaisical kind of performances or not being maybe as cutthroat as normal. But I don't know, Shane. I don't know I don't know how far they look ahead, to be honest with you. Genuinely, it was funny. There was a little Q&A with Ronan Power in yesterday's program, and he just said, "Sport and ambition for the future to win today." That's taken like we're one game or every game as it comes to another level. Also,
they have a 7-a-side team.
Yeah, he named the 7-a-side team. It was Stephen O'Keefe, Barry Coughlin, Philip Mahoney, Cian Lynch, Barry Power, Peter Hogan, and Aaron Gillan. So only Cian Lynch and Aaron Gillan, two of the best hurlers of this generation, were good enough to break into an all Ballygunner team. But
so all Ballygunner Patrick's well team.
Yeah, basically. I don't know, Shane. I genuinely don't think they look far ahead at all. And I think, and I know you could say that's cliched or whatever, but their performances would back that up. They've won their last 3 Munster openers by 17 points. They've laid waste to teams. They should be coming off a break. They should be a bit cold. They should be a bit ring rusty, and they're not. They've 4 games from here on to win in All-Ireland. And up next, obviously, is 𝘧𝘢𝘀𝘰𝘯. As Darragh O'Sullivan said, the two juggernauts coming head to head again, and 𝘧𝘀𝘀𝘰 were in a really good position in last year's game, dominated that first half, and then Ballygunner dominated the second half. Now, I don't know if 𝘧𝘀𝘀𝘀𝘰 are as good this year as they were last year, and I think Ballygunner are as good, if not better, than they were last year. That'll be a fascinating game, but you'd imagine like the winner of that game is odds-on favourites to win Munster, and they're definitely favourites to win the All-Ireland as well.
Yeah. So a point I was making yesterday on X was I was tweeting that fair enough, like Cork teams aren't doing well, and they're, you know, we've gone through the stats there. They've been paddled most of the time over the last number of years. But if you took teams from an awful lot of other counties outside of Munster and threw them in, if you threw in over the last 14 years the Offaly champions, the Laois champions, the Carlow champions, some other, like, you know, strong hurling counties, Westmeath champions, would they not all like have a similar sort of a record?
Oh no, I don't disagree with that. Yeah, I think you know, like Fintan O'Toole that you mentioned earlier said it yesterday. Like, and the question is like, look, would they win the Joe McDonagh? Would they compete at Division 1 level in the league? Would they come out of the Leinster Championship? And they're just a really, really good team that would routinely do that to a hell of a lot of county champions around the country. The only ones that probably wouldn't do it to are the Kilkenny champions, Galway champions, probably the Antrim champions, Schlockneil maybe as well. But, you know, the vast majority of other counties, maybe Limerick, when the 𝘧𝘀𝘀𝘀𝘀𝘀 are winning there, but probably the vast majority of other counties, they would dish out a double-digit beating to them routinely. And that's what they do.
SSRI says that's highly disrespectful there, that point. Why? I'm curious, why is it? Like, I think it's kind of realistic to say that, like, it's not only Cork teams that would really, really struggle in Munster, and even Tipperary teams, you know, had some very tough defeats in recent times. Clonolty Rossmore were absolutely hammered by 𝘧𝘀𝘀𝘀𝘀𝘀, and last year, Killarwan, I know there's excuses only the week, turnaround injuries, all that kind of stuff, but like, you know, Tipperary teams have had a rough enough time outside of Thurles winning Munster there a few years ago, and Bursley winning it as well recently, but other than that, Tip teams haven't been great.
Yeah, I think that the thing about Cork is just, I suppose, a lot of it comes back to tradition and how strong the Cork clubs were in, you know, a bygone era or whatever. Maybe it's symptomatic of the fact that they haven't won, you know, been able to win an All-Ireland since 2005. The quality of the club game has probably dropped significantly since then. I think but when you're looking at true Cork size, what have Cork got? 30 All-Irelands or something like that? You're looking at an Offaly championship or a Laois championship, with due respect. Like those county teams aren't nearly, they're not expected to be nearly as competitive as Cork teams are. And everyone points to how competitive the Cork championship is. And then you look at how they've done outside of Cork. And that's, it's competitive within itself, but I don't know how competitive it is when you put it up against Ballygunner, or when you put it up against the 𝘕𝘰 or Ballyhale or Thomas's or Cushendall or Schlockneil or Dunloy or whoever, any of those big teams at the top end.
Yeah, and Adrian McGrath's Loughmore got very close to Ballygunner last year. You could argue they took their eye off the ball against the 𝘕𝘰. So I'm really looking forward to that game. Is that next week or a couple of weeks' time?
No, Sunday week in Limerick. Yeah, now that should be a cracking game.
Yeah, it should definitely be a cracker. So keep getting your points in on that. We'll come back to it again. And actually, I had mentioned that the Glen had so few home games. Not the Glen, but they're one of the representatives of Cork, that they had so few home games in the last number of years, 10 years since their last home game. Like the likes of the 𝘬𝘢, I think 80% of their games have been away from home since they had their run in recent years as well. So they're not the only ones that have suffered that. SSRI Tip Club Hurling is nothing to write home about at the minute. Big problems there under the surface. A 𝘮𝘗𝘮 village. I'm not sure what a 𝘮𝘗𝘮 village is, but look, as I said, some of the Tipperary clubs have come out and been hammered, but you have Thurles, you've had Borrisley, and you've had Loughmore, who've done very well, even if Loughmore didn't get where they wanted to go that year. And also they were on the dual run at the same time, so that made it doubly difficult for them. And do you know what, actually, as we're mentioning all this, and 𝘰𝘮 will be the next up for Tipperary to see how they perform, but the All-Ireland odds, so surprise, surprise, Ballygunner are favourites 5-4. I'm just looking at betting here. I won't promote a company that it's not going to look after us now. St. Thomas's are 11-2, just like the 𝘕𝘰 are. O'Loughlin Gaels are 8-1. Na Fianna 12-1, as are Schlockneil. 𝘰𝘮 18-1. Kilcormac 20-1. Cushendall 28-1.